Alright, so I'm going to do a video here on comparing the ORQA FPV goggles to the Skyzone 04X Pro goggles. And I have been using the ORQA FPV goggles as my daily driver for the last few months. I wanted to give this a fair shake. I was using the Skyzone goggles for many months as my daily driver, and I like both these goggles in different ways, and there's some pros and cons to each of these goggles, at least for me specifically. So this is going to be a very subjective comparison. There's lots of reviews on the ORQA goggles already. These ORQA goggles have been out for actually a lot longer than the Skyzone goggles. I used to fly the 04X regular Skyzone goggles before, and then I recently got the Pros, and I've been using these since they came out. I think it was like more than a year ago. And the ORQA goggles have been out for at least a couple of years. I think there's some different variations now. I think this is the standard one, the FPV.One.Pilots is what these are called. Now, in terms of which goggle is best for you, I'm not going to make any recommendation either way. You can listen to the things that I found were good for me and bad for me. These things could be completely the opposite for you. Goggles are probably the hardest thing to find for any individual, because what works well for one person may not work well for another person. It's very different. The experience is very different. Plus, you need to be aware of what your priorities are. What do you want to get out of the goggles? Is the fit the most important thing? Fit and comfort. Are the optics the most important thing? You want to have the best visual experience. Is price a consideration? Is that the most important thing to you? So those are just things, that you need to sort of think about when you're looking at goggles, and what is right for one person is not right for another person. It just really depends. That being said, I'm going to talk about what I specifically experienced personally, and so please take that into context when you're listening to what I'm saying here, because obviously what might be good for me, that might be good for you. So the biggest thing for me that stood out was the fit, and the Skyzone goggles fit my face much better. Now the Skyzones come with two of these faceplates here, and there's a wider one and a narrower one. The narrow one is pretty much the same spot on as the one that is on the ORQAs. The narrow ones do not fit my face well. The wide one here fits my face well. As far as I know, there isn't a alternative faceplate for the ORQA goggles, because the opening is, as you can see, is quite a bit narrower. And it's hard to see. It doesn't really come out too well on camera. But this has got a steeper angle here, so my wider face, basically I feel the pinching on my temples, on the side of my head here. I have a lot of light leakage in the top here, and also in the bottom, in the nose area right here. Actually, lots of light leakage here. Obviously, I could probably put some foam in here, and then I know that some people have put in some foam pieces underneath this Velcro here and sort of push this foam out. Those are things that could be remedies. I have no light leakage on this particular faceplate with this foam here, which is not stock foam. This is like a foam that came with an earlier Skyzone goggle that they don't make anymore. But with this particular foam, and there's lots of third-party foam, by the way, so for both these goggles, so you can definitely find some customizations out there that'll help you with the fit. But I have no light leakage in the nose area or in the head area here, because this faceplate pretty much fits my head perfectly. So that being said, I know there's a lot of people out there that say that any kind of light leakage is a deal breaker. For me, it was a problem at first. When I first put these on, I was having some difficulties seeing the screen, especially if it was a bright sunny day outside and I was not in the shade. I had to basically put the sun behind me. If the sun was to the side or in front, there would be so much light leakage that I would not be able to see the screens, or there would be like either glare or some sort of, it would just be too bright. The screens weren't bright enough to drown out the direct sunlight. That was a problem for like the first week that I was trying to use these. I had to make some adjustments. Basically, I had to either stand in the shade, or I had to put the sun behind me, or just put, basically so that the sun couldn't get into the goggles. Now, if I'm flying indoors, that wasn't as big of an issue, typically, unless there was like some sort of a light source or something that was above or below. Now, obviously, from below, there was quite a bit of light leakage. I did have to kind of get used to it. I eventually did. It doesn't bother me too much right now, even after using for a few months. Still, I notice it. I know for some people it's a complete deal breaker. Any kind of light leakage, not going to work. I understand that. For me, I just sort of sucked it up and, tried to adjust to the fact that I was getting light leakage. And I did try to stick with the stock foam and everything. And yes, I know that I could have done some foam modifications and stuff like that. I just did the best I could to try and adjust to the form factor that was presented to me, and just do the best I could. Could I still fly? Yes, absolutely. After adjustments, I've been flying. You saw lots of videos where I'm flying, like the latest whoops, all the analog videos you've seen, like the Hummingbird RS, the Air 75, the Air 65, etc. All those were flown on this DVR and this goggle. So you saw that footage already. So you know that I can fly with them. I just had to adjust. Now, that being said, while the fit on the Skyzone is a lot better than the ORQAs, the field of view on the Skyzones, I feel, is a little bit too big. It's about, I think, 52 degrees field of view on the Skyzones. I'm not sure why they went so big. The ones before the regular Skyzone 04Xs, the ones I had previously, were pretty good. They were like 42, I believe. And so they've gone really huge. They also went to a bigger screen. We'll talk about that here in a second. But the field of view specifically was just crazy big on this one. So the screen looks much bigger on the Skyzones compared to the ORQAs, because I can't get my eyes close enough to the actual optics. The screens are kind of further away. But because the field of view is smaller, it's like 37 degrees on the ORQA, I can actually see the entire screen. No problem. So all of the OSD elements I can see visually, but I can also see that when I'm looking through these optics here, you can see there's a circle there, right? Well, it's basically, it's kind of hard to explain, but instead of seeing like the square screen, I see a square screen with a circle around it, and I see basically, it's kind of like looking through a periscope, or like a tunnel or something. So you get like kind of a tunnel vision to see the screens, but I can see the entire screen. It just looks like it's further away and not as large as the screen looks on the Skyzone. So that's something that's important to you. Screen size, that's something you have to consider, because that has to do with the fit and getting your eyes close to the optics. I can get my eyes totally close on these, and the screens are absolutely huge. But the field of view is so large that I have to move my OSD elements closer to the center of the screen. If I move basically the corners, so if you look at, I'm showing you where my hands are, these corners on the Skyzone, I can't see those. Those are cut off because the field of view is too large. So if I put any OSD elements in the corners of the screen, I can't see those at all. I have to move them to the middles somewhere, or in the bottom middle, something like that, more towards the center, and it's fine. But it's a very, very super immersive feel, because the screen's so huge, and you're not seeing the corners. It looks really zoomed in. So if you like that immersive feel, that I think, especially with that, at least for me, the fit and the super large field of view was very immersive, and it's a pro and a con, right? So if you like that feel, that's great. But then if you don't like having your screen cut off in the corners, then that could be bad. And I think the field of view is a little bit overkill on the Skyzones. But for those of you that can, some people have the ability to see the whole screen. It depends on the person. If you have that ability to be able to see the entire screen, you want that whole field of view, then of course, then the Skyzones have that much larger field of view. Now, the optics are very similar. So they do have the diopters and the the adjustments, but the range is a lot narrower on the ORQAs. So that's a -4 to a +4 on the optics versus a -6 to a +6 on the Skyzone. So you can see here, I had to put in the Fat Shark inserts here, which are -2 diopter, and so I have this set all the way to -4, plus the -2 gives me a -6. That's what my prescription is, and on the Skyzones, this goes to a -6, and I have this set to all the way to a -6, and I can see perfectly fine without any additional diopter, little lenses there. So if your prescription is really far out, then you're gonna need additional lenses on top of the adjustments inside there. It's a minor inconvenience, but once I got those in there and made the proper adjustments, the focus is fine. Again, just the screen is kind of further away, but I can see the whole screen. Okay, so in terms of overall build quality and reliability, I think they're both very good. I think the ORQA's build quality is a little bit better, just a little bit nicer. The fan on the Skyzone is very loud and very annoying. The fan noise on the ORQAs is much more quiet and very less annoying. I prefer that it's not as noisy. Yeah, and so in terms of reliability, I haven't had any issues with the Skyzones in about the year that I've had these, and none with the ORQAs in about the 3 months that I've been using this. So functionally, everything's been working fine. Now, I think the last consideration is price, and this is probably where the biggest difference is between these two goggles, and something that's probably going to be a big factor in your consideration. The ORQA goggles do not come with a receiver. You have to buy them separately. So I put the rapid fires in here just because that's probably the one that's going to be the closest to the one that's in the Skyzones, which is called the Steady View receiver. And basically the Steady View receiver mimics what the rapid fire does in terms of how it uses the diversity receiver to get the best image possible. I'm not going to get into the whole thing of which one's better. I think they're both really good, and it depends on the situation you're in and the antennas you're using. Some of them, like the Steady X is sometimes better in some situations, and the rapid fire is better in other situations. It's a little bit hard to describe. I feel like when it goes out of sync, sometimes like the video signal due to various problems, when it goes out of sync, the rapid fire seems to handle that a little bit better than the Skyzone, so the Steady View. It just really depends on also the video transmitter using. So for the most part, for the situations I use the analog stuff for, around the house and just basically for close flying, I haven't noticed really much difference. They're pretty much the same, but the Skyzones come with that receiver. It includes that in the cost of the goggle. It's included. And the Skyzones cost $509 right now. I just checked the price before I started recording this video. And the ORQAs the prices are in euros. It's like $599.95 for just the goggles, which is about $647 in US dollars. And then the rapid fire module is 159.95 euros, and that in dollars that's 172.60. So this combined cost here is about $820 versus the Skyzones are about $509. So that's a more than $300 price difference between these two. And again, it really comes down to what's important to you. Is field of view important to you? Is the fit more important to you? So those are just factors that I've sort of talked about in this video. I think you're kind of sort of make that judgment yourself as to whether or not. So say, for example, for me, is the field of view being smaller on the ORQAs and be able to see all my OSD elements worth the extra $300 to me? So that's the kind of question you should ask for yourself. I'm not going to answer that question for you because those things are going to just depend whether or not the things that the ORQA brings to the table is worth the extra cost to you. I think that's a decision you have to make for yourself. I just wanted to, a lot of people ask me how I've been dealing with the ORQAs, and I really don't have too many complaints other than the fit. the fact that I have the light leakage, yes, I can compensate for that, but I've kind of gotten used to it. It doesn't really bother me that much anymore as compared to initially, because I was so used to having no light leakage whatsoever. So again, it just depends on the person and what their priorities are. You know, those things are all factors. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you have the Skyzone 04X Pros and you have some stories to share, please let me know. Same with the ORQA goggles. Definitely want to hear from you in terms of any stories you have on your experiences with these goggles, both good and bad. Just let me know down in the comments below. Just want to share with the rest of the community how everyone is doing with these. But they're both good goggles. I just think that whether or not they're the right, finding the right person for the right goggle is kind of like, it's very subjective, right? It really depends on the person. So I'll leave it at that and look forward to hearing from you down in the comments below, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.